This is, and this is why I call it a Practiclass. It's a master class on practicing, so it's a little bit different than most master classes. Today we will talk about deliberate practice. This term was first coined in 1993 by Anders Ericsson, who I'll note just passed a couple of weeks ago, the top skill researcher I've ever known of. He's responsible for what you know as the 10,000 hour rule, though he didn't really invent that idea. That was kind of a media creation. So you've heard of this. What he found, he went looking for talent. What is it? How do people get really good? And he couldn't find that magical element. What he found was a certain amount of work and a certain type of work. And the type of work he called deliberate practice. There are two studies that he wrote. There are many more things, but specific to deliberate practice, there's one from 1993. You see it on the slide here. The role of deliberate practice in the acquisition of expert performance. And then later he fleshed it out a little bit and wrote in 2006, The Influence of Experience in Deliberate Practice on the Development of Superior Expert Performance. Now I want to be really clear. I'm not saying you only use deliberate practice to become a virtuoso. You use deliberate practice to play as well as you can at any level, all the way up to if you want to be a virtuoso. If you don't feel like putting in thousands of hours and moving on to virtuosity, all you need to do is however much you practice should look like deliberate practice. And every recital you give will feel great. So it's not just about becoming great. But if this is what makes people great, thousands of hours of it, won't a couple hours help you? And it will immensely. Here's how I illustrate deliberate practice. A three-step process. Let's think of it, and you can use this for anything, but let's think of it in terms of repetitions, right? We all do repetitions. We play something, and then we play it again to try and make it more solid. Every time we do that, we should do it. Then we should stop and say, what could be better? How is there something I'd like to fix and change? Then we make a plan. Oh, well, I noticed my second finger was too far to the left. This time, I'll try to move it farther to the right. Then we do it. Then we reflect. Well, it was better, but it was a little too far to the right. I think next time I'll move it farther to the left. Now, let's be honest. Is this the way we practice? Just with yourself. Is this the way we practice? Do you notice the difference? How can you know what to fix if you don't know what to fix? And this reflect process requires mental energy. You actually have to stop, think, and focus. It hurts your brain. And the less you've done of it, the harder it is to make yourself do it. If you don't believe me, just try it. I mean, really try it. How do most of us practice? Without the reflect piece. I call this, with the reflect, the IndyCar of learning, okay? It's a highly engineered machine to really specific tolerances. It performs at the highest level. This is the IndyCar without any tires, or what I call the tricycle of learning. You can get it out on the track and you can start moving, but that car is going to do 50 laps before you get halfway around. And that's the difference. That's why two people can practice the same amount and one can get way better than the other one. This method can be referred to as play and pray. And it's the way most of us, myself included, pretty much all the way through my graduate degree, except at the very end when I started to figure a few things out. In performance, we go into practice where we think we kind of know what we want to do. We kind of do it. We try something and maybe it works or not, and now we're on to the next thing. Or maybe we just repeat it 100 times, which is not the worst thing in the world, a bit much, not the worst thing in the world in the beginning, but that gets old really quick and it doesn't work as well. And we're going to actually use something to break through that today, to break through these plateaus. But we should always have a plan. We should always look at every single move we make and say, is that the move I want? And if not, what should I do to fix it? This is the way most of us function much of the time. It's why when we walk into a door that says push and we pull it and we laugh, because our brain can't be locked into figuring stuff out and reflecting all the time. Our whole lives would stop. Okay, right foot, now I need to move my left foot. Now I'm going to reach for the door handle. We can't think of everything that we do all the time. But because the brain likes to conserve energy, the brain cannot store energy. It uses energy in the form of glucose. Because the brain cannot store energy, it is very conscious about conserving that energy. It knows the energy runs out when the food runs out, now, obviously, the brain doesn't realize we pretty much have as much food as we need if we're fortunate enough, and that's not going to happen. So the brain automatically relegates things to this not thinking automatic stuff, which is great. That's so helpful, except when we need it. I'll give you an example. We talk about how people focus and how they remember things when they're scared, when you fear. Why? What happens? You focus and you reflect very much because the stakes are very high. It automatically takes you out of that automatic mode and puts you into the very focused problem-solving mode because we want to stop the fear. What are we afraid of? We'll have to figure out our, a solution to the problem. I'm not suggesting you practice afraid, by the way. So, though a lot of us do, don't we? Oh my gosh, the recital's this week. What am I going to do? How about have it all done and ready to play 2 weeks before the recital? If you start doing this, you'll find this happens. You'll also find you get worse at first before you get better. Now, you need to be aware of something in psychology called the Dunning-Kruger effect. I'll explain this in normal terms here in a second. People tend to hold overly favorable views of their abilities in many social and intellectual domains. The author suggests that this overestimation occurs in part because people who are unskilled in these domains suffer a dual burden. Not only do these people reach erroneous conclusions and make unfortunate choices, but their incompetence robs them of the metacognitive ability to realize it. Metacognitive, thinking about what we're doing. The reflect piece. What this says is, the less you know about something, the better you will think you are at doing it. Now, it's not, well, do you know how to speak Swahili? No, I'm great at it. It's not that. If you've never bothered to learn Swahili, you know you don't know it. However, once we start learning something and we begin reflecting, we will think we've done much better than we actually have because we don't know what to look for. That's what our teachers do for us each week. Fix this, fix that, do that. And if we go home and do deliberate practice and listen to our teacher, we'll start to see more and more things. Our mental model will grow. The more you know about something, the more you can know about something, the more you can learn about it, and we'll start to make better decisions. But at first, and I don't want to give this away, but what you'll see many times in my practice classes, even if you look at the videos I have online, is someone plays something and I say, how was that? It was fine. I say, okay, play it again, but listen to every single note. And all of a sudden they start seeing this and that wrong note. And guess what happens after 3 more repetitions? They start seeing 5 more things. These were not in our view before because we didn't know to look for them. So be aware that you're going to have to really look at first, and that your first reaction, if this is the first time you're doing it, is going to be, yeah, it's fine, or nah, I don't need to fix that. You do. Take everything very seriously. In fact, treat deliberate practice as an exercise into itself. Even if it doesn't improve your playing at the moment, do deliberate practice, but it will. What follows is a quick explanation of how you can teach this to somebody or yourself. I made this slideshow for a teacher out east in Virginia, Anne-Marie Peterson, who's a wonderful middle school orchestra director and teacher. She's got some instructional stuff online. I recommend it. She asked for help in putting together something to teach her middle schoolers about deliberate practice. If this works for middle schoolers, it'll work for just about anyone. So we'll use the middle school version. This is how we do it. We do the plan, do, reflect, and we start by talking about plan. What do I want to do? The brain can only focus on one thing at a time. There is no such thing as multitasking. What you're doing is quickly shifting attention, which wastes a lot of time. We should try and improve only one thing at a time. Isolate and practice the small things we need to improve and build from there. Here are some examples. I want to play these notes correctly. I want to play this crescendo evenly. Use more of my bow. Play this rhythm correctly. What are some things you can think of now? Now this was for a class, so I'm not going to ask you to do that, okay? Then, do it. Start playing what you're isolating. But remember when we talked about metacognition? First, in the next step, we have to reflect on what we just did. As we play, we think about what we are doing. Am I doing what I planned? Could anything be better? If so, what things could be better? If you've never done this before, you will probably find focusing while you play messes you up. That's a good thing. Get a hold of that. And by the way, you know that's one of the reasons you have stage fright and you mess up, because when you start to focus, if we're not focusing in practice, we get on stage and we focus, it messes you up. Why not do that in practice first? Okay, then play, obvious. Okay, now it's time to think about what we did. Reflect. Did we do what we planned? If not, how many things could be better? What were those things and how might we do each of them better? Now make a plan. Any plan. Well, I'm going to stand on my head. Okay, stand on your head. You'll eliminate that possibility, but if that's your plan, go for it. Every time you make a plan and it doesn't work, if there are 20 bad ways to do it, now there are only 19 left. Eventually, you're going to get to the solution. And every time you find a solution, your brain will remember that solution. And when you hit that problem again, you're not going to have to go through the 20 tries. What do you see how this builds solutions and makes your practice better and better over time? See how this works? Plan, do, reflect. This is teaching ourselves in practice. Our teacher isn't there, so we have to be our own teacher by reflecting. Think like a teacher when you practice. Here's what's going on. Every time you try to improve your repetition, you are changing your brain just like in these images. You are building the neural communication networks you see here. Accuracy is important. Now, how many times do teachers say, play slowly, play slowly. If you practice mistakes, you'll play mistakes. Well, now we have a reason for it. You are building neural networks in your brain. If you don't do it correctly, you are not working on the right neural network. That's why things go wrong in performance. You have a choice, and the choices are two. Do it the right way and get better. Do it the wrong way and don't. Okay, so that's why we need to slow down. You will need to play very slowly so that you can focus until the brain makes the skill automatic. If you keep making the same mistakes, you are playing too fast, and your neural communication network will be bad. As we repeat something, it produces myelin, which insulates the neural network. The more myelin we have, the faster and stronger the network communicates. If we play something incorrectly, then we are myelinating the wrong network. Here's a picture of wraps of myelin around an axon in a neural network. That's what this is right here. You can see my mouse. And that is all.